Hi, everybody. It's come to my attention that the Dabs group is going to be up in Banff this week for a family event, and part of the time you're going to be celebrating Joe's 60th birthday. And so I thought I'd just make a couple comments here and maybe roast him a little bit because the Lord knows there's a lot of content. But that didn't seem appropriate since it's a family event. But then I said, what the heck? So I'm just going to tell a couple random events here and just hit a couple of highlights, stuff that pops to my mind. But I'll let Joe fill in any details as necessary. The first time I met Joe was, I think it was in 1970. My family moved into Smoke Rise, and Joe heard that there was a new swimmer in town, and because he was kind of the swimmer stud in the neighborhood, and he came over. I think basically he came over to brag about the medal that he won that summer. But at any rate, he came over and he knocked on our garage door, and frantically, and we opened the door to look out there to find Joe trying to get his bicycle, his brand new bicycle, out from under the garage door. He had accidentally hit the button that lowers the garage door, and it was smashing down on his bicycle. It was pretty funny. But Joe, speaking of swimming, I tracked down Coach Murray. He sends his regards to you. Ashley, did you know that back in our elementary school class that Joe was voted the cutest boy in our graduating elementary school class? It didn't make any sense to me either, but a lot's changed in 50 years, huh, Joe? Here's a first. The first time I ever saw a car phone. It's in Joe's fancy new car. He had a job as a salesman for some company somewhere, and he gets on there and he makes his phone call. He calls his assistant or his secretary or calls the company, and he starts to tell them that he won't be in for a while because he has an important business meeting that he's headed to, and it's going to take a few hours. And the simple fact was we had golf clubs in the trunk, and we were headed out to play a round of golf. So the first time I ever saw a car phone / cell phone used was Joe was sending a story to his company about why he wasn't going to be there. Joe. Now, I'm a pilot, and I have over 20,000 hours, and I've had one airplane crash. One. And guess what? With Joe. I don't know how he caused it, but somehow he made this happen. We were flying along in a light twin engine airplane, and I couldn't get the nose wheel down. It was just stuck up. I don't know how Joe fixed that, but somehow it happened. But while we're burning down gas, trying to get a little bit lighter before we kind of slide this thing in on the runway, Joe told me, you know, Greg, it kind of figures, he said, I've wrecked cars, I've wrecked boats. I think he had just run his dad's boat up on a reef down in Fernandina somewhere or something and knocked the bottom out of it. He said, so I've wrecked cars, boats, and somewhere along in there, he'd even run into a train. I don't even want to talk about that story. But so he said it only makes sense that, you know, that he gets involved in a plane crash. And frankly, I kind of wish he had told me that before we took off. I might have done things differently. Hey, Joe, did you ever tell your dad what Bill Sims did to your dad's Cutlass Supreme the night of my bachelor party? I'm just kind of wondering if you ever told him that. Listen, this is just a couple silly little things. I got a whole bunch of stuff that I could go through, but I'm going to stop. But let me just look at the list. Let's see, there's the Benelli in New Smyrna Beach. Joe, you care to expound on that? That was a fun month, by the way. Let's see, Las Vegas, good and bad. Fill in some details on that. Let's see here. Oh yeah, how about the cigars when Mary and I got married that night? Fill in that story. You know, my dog bit Joe. Zappa bit Joe pretty good. He had pretty good taste and pretty good discerning ability for a dog. He could pick people out. Of course, my dog bit most of my friends. Okay, I'm going to stop talking here. But one thing I do want to say is, Joe and I have been friends for a long time. We don't get together very often. I mean, I haven't seen Joe in, I don't know, over a year. But he's one of those kind of guys that when we do get together, it's like we were next door neighbors and we just pick right up where we stopped off. And you're a lucky person if you have a friend like that in your life. And Joe's a buddy of mine. He always will be. All right, buddy. I love you. Have a good birthday. You guys have a good celebration up there in Banff.